Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast, episode 51.
Welcome to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast with your host, Jack Mountain Bushcraft School founder and Master Maine Guide, Tim Smith.
I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm a registered Master Maine Guide, and in 1999 I founded the Jack Mountain Bushcraft School. We help people become more skilled, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more confident outdoors by using traditional skills, a few simple tools, and field-based experience. Whether you're looking to go from city slicker to competent outdoor professional, want to experience a remote expedition, or just want to learn a few new outdoor skills, we've got you covered. You can check out the show notes to this and all of our podcasts at blog.jackmtn.com. When you're there, click on the podcast button. And if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on iTunes. Lastly, the best way to keep up with our programs and trips is to join our email newsletter, and you can do that at jmbnews.com. Good morning and welcome back to another episode of the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Smith. I'm joined this morning with Christopher Russell. We're sitting in the guide shack. And I am suffering this morning.
Christopher, I'm so sorry.
Last week had the gall to travel and go to an old friend of his wedding, and had the double gall to bring back an illness into our idyllic little camp setting, and it is robustly traveling through the people in camp. So
I'm convinced that my good friend Esteban gave me this on purpose so that I'll come back to him. It's not working, Este. I don't know if you ever listen to this, but it's not going to work.
Anyway, I'm happy to send him anywhere because at this point in my life, I get a cold probably once a year, once every year and a half. When my kids were little, those little disease vectors running around at daycares and schools and stuff, you'd get these horrific sicknesses and illnesses. But thankfully they're a bit older now, and but I am definitely not 100%. So if my voice sounds a little bit off, that's why. I'm trying to power through it by sucking down coffee like a champion.
That seems like the right approach.
But anyway, so it's pretty late in our fall semester. We just wrapped up week 7, 2 weeks to go. So the end is in sight. It's been a long year this year in camp. Our season usually starts around mid-April here at the field school, where people are here consistently. So yeah, we started in mid-April where it was, I remember the morning the spring semester started this year, that Sunday morning, it was 2 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
And there was still like 6 feet of snow on the road, and we were waiting for spring to arrive. Now, last night it was in the high 20s here. That's degrees freedom, not degrees Canadian. And we're at the other end of the spectrum. So our brief, but this year very hot and humid summer is a thing of the past, and we're slowly sliding into winter. So end of the season in camp. So we like to take advantage of these nights where the days are still pretty warm and sunny. The nights are cool. So as we're nearing the end of the semester, the students on the current semester course have done a bunch of different shelters, and we have them spend a minimum of 4 consecutive nights in each shelter. And kind of the shelter graduation exercise for the shoulder seasons like this is for them to spend the night in a shelter, a non-insulative shelter, but with no sleeping bag or blanket, and just sleeping in front of a fire to keep them warm. So everybody did that last night.
And they're all dead.
Well, one of them still is...
No, they're all fine.
They're all fine.
I'm kidding.
Oh, okay. I haven't been up the hill yet this morning.
Yeah. No, they're fine.
But it's a great exercise. It's one of those, I like to say, where the boogeyman dies, when you realize that you'll be fine without a blanket or a sleeping bag in below freezing weather. It's just super, super empowering. It's also the first night you do it, it's super tiring.
Yeah.
And when I give the spiel introducing the exercise, I talk about it's sort of like the first night at home with like a newborn baby when they come home from the hospital, because you're up all night. You don't really know. There's no like instruction manual. The kid cries, you wake up, and you wonder if you'll ever sleep again. And the first night in front of a big open fire like that is sort of like that, where you don't get good restful sleep. But by week 2 of having that little kid in the house, you're sleeping through the night. And half the day as well. Whenever you get a chance, you take it. So after you spend a few nights in front of a big open fire, then you can honestly wake up, put wood on the fire, go back to sleep, and in the morning you don't remember doing it. Not unlike getting up to change a diaper at 3 a.m. You don't, after you do it a bit, you don't remember doing it. So it's a great empowering exercise, and that's what everybody did here last night. So we've got our final trip coming up with our culminating exercise. Folks have solos to do, and it hasn't rained here since, I don't know, we haven't had any significant rain in a long time. So the river is basically like a damp puddle with an occasional trickle of water. I think the cubic feet per second is less than 100 right now here in Masardis on the Aroostook. And just, for example, when the ice goes out in the spring, it's at like 20,000.
Yeah.
So it's just a trickle right now.
There's
So
nothing there.
So we are headed out to a system of lakes that we're going to do our final trip on, just because the river system right now is just not an option. So a bit of a struggle with the climate in that respect. It seems like 3 falls in a row we've had these big droughts.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And the summers are brutal too. It's hot and, like you said, humid and gross. And then we'll get like the 10-day will show that we're supposed to get a bunch of rain, and then as it gets closer and closer, the percentage slowly drops, and then it just doesn't rain.
Yeah, 5 days out, we're going to get 2 inches of rain. It's going to pour all day,
yeah.
And then by that morning, there's like a 10% chance we get a sprinkle.
Yeah,
and it doesn't happen. So. But we're blessed with lots of water here in northern Maine, so it's not like the desert or anything. There's still lakes and rivers and ponds and streams, and the woods are still damp. But it has minimized our ability to travel on the river systems anyway.
That cough sounds pretty bad. You should kill whoever gave that to you.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Noted.
So yeah, nearing the end of the excuse me. Nearing the end of the season, it's kind of sad because camp life here it's fun and have a good time doing it. But at the end of the season, it's just not practical for everybody to live outdoors when it's cold all the time, without specialized gear, without wall tents and wood stoves and things like that. So we go our separate ways. So it's kind of bittersweet. I'm always excited for the end of the year. I get to go home and reunite with my family. I get to cook in a regular modern kitchen with running water and things of that nature. But it's funny, the more years I spend living off the grid for 7 or 8 months, the easier it is, the more pleasurable. And so for me, it's always get really excited to go back home. But then after 2 or 3 days of modern conveniences, I'm like, okay, I've had enough. I'm ready to go back.
Yeah.
And a few things in camp. We'll probably shoot some videos this winter and show you some of the things that we've developed in camp this year, and just some of to smooth it even further. We've got a pretty idiot-resistant hot water system now, all solar, and it just works great. So
that's pretty easy.
The hard things about camp life, I can't even remember them because we haven't dealt with them in years. It's pretty cushy living, off the grid anyway. Yeah, so this morning we're going to talk a little bit about what Christopher did last summer and what the big plans are for next summer with the School of the Forest.
Yeah. So this summer I ran the first programs on the property that I've run, and those were the Teen Tech Detox canoe expedition.
Somebody asked me about that yesterday at the auto repair place.
Really?
They're like, "What's the Teen Detox?" They were looking at the website, and I told them that it was about separating kids from their cell phones essentially in technology. But they were like, "Really? That's a thing?" And I'm like, "That's a huge thing."
Yeah, and it was a lot of fun and very powerful. We had one student from suburban Massachusetts who sort of spent most of his life, because of school and because of his personal interests in front of a computer, and it was really interesting and really really powerful to watch him in the first 2 days. Really struggled with not being able to Google any question he had, having to go into the library, but by the end of the 2 weeks, he was having a great time out here. He wasn't thinking about any of that stuff. And then the second one we ran was the Family Bushcraft Week, which you have run in the past up here, and that I've kind of brought back in a new reiteration for School of the Forest. And we had a couple of families come up, and that was a cool thing, because I think for most of human history, that what we did for those 2 weeks was how little communities lived. A big gap in ages, and we had a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old running around. And...
What was the story now? The 2-year-old standing naked in the pond or something?
Oh, so there's a couple of good stories about this young man who was. So when he first got out of the van with his family, the first thing he did was walked up to me and held up a hammer and said, "Hi, I'm Julian. I have a mallet." And I was like, "You and I are going to get along great." And then about 3 days later, we're working on canoe stuff, and this kid's parents are in the pond, and all of a sudden from the shore, we just hear this tiny little voice go, "Hi, Mommy, I'm naked." And we just looked over, and he just decided he wanted to go for a swim and didn't know where his swim trunks were, so he just made the best of it.
Classic.
Yeah, it was a really, really fun time. I think everybody, myself included, got a lot out of that short little window of time that we spent together.
I think that was the driving force behind founding the Family Bushcraft Week, and I'm glad to see that it's still filling that niche of it's a place where you can come and kind of have fun and explore the outdoors, explore some of the traditional skills, but it's not like, okay, it's 8:15 a.m. we're doing this, and at 9 we're doing that, and at 10 we're doing that. It's sort of more free flowing. And
yeah, it was when we run courses. When we run the adult programs up here, it is, it's not, we're not sounding revelry in the morning or anything, but we have a schedule and we stick to it. But having that week where it was, there was instruction going on, but it was pretty relaxed, and it reminded me that this living this way is really, really soothing if you're not if you don't bring sort of the modern need for being on time down to the minute to it. It can be really relaxing even if you're working hard every day.
Yeah, going back in time before the railroad, because the railroad was the technological innovation that made everybody care exactly what time it is. Before the railroad, people were happy with morning, noon, afternoon, maybe even throw in a forenoon. After the railroad, it had to be 8:03, 2:07,
exactly.
and we've never recovered from it. Now every gadget has devices and timers, and sometimes it's nice to leave all that stuff and
oh, absolutely.
You can look up at the sky and see where the sun is in the sky, and you say, oh, it's still morning, or it's afternoon, and that's enough. And I think that's the point of the tech detox, the Family Bushcraft, is to kind of eliminate those modern hassles and distractions and get back to the more rhythmic ways that humans have lived on the planet.
So the
forever.
mother of our little mallet wielding friend, they were only up here for a week, but even at the end of the week, she was telling me that she was not looking forward to leaving behind the peacefulness that comes from being up here. And like I say, she was only up here for a week. And I want to know, I want to see that happen more often with people, because that's what it's all about, I think. We can talk about how gratifying it is to canoe 200 miles and all that stuff, but the reality is that just living this way there's a peace that comes from it that I don't think you can get from anything else.
Well, 350,000 years of anatomically modern humans.
You don't think Facebook's the way to do it?
Most of them lived like this up until the very last.
No, it was Facebook.
You think?
They were virtually poking each other via cave drawings.
Even just hearing you say that, I just threw up a little bit in my mouth.
No, that's the cold I gave you.
Anyway. Yeah, so that's, again, I don't look forward to leaving camp and camp life, because you've got to go. I have a pretty idyllic existence in New Hampshire at home.
Sure.
It's not like I'm going back to I don't know, some urban...
Helheim?
I don't know where that is, but...
I don't know.
It's not like I'm going back to some urban thing where we're on like the 70th floor of a high rise, but still just that, being within the grip of modern society. I like to say in New Hampshire, we live on a small lake, and about a mile and a half away on the far corner of the lake is a road that you can hear, especially in the morning when trucks are going by. And here at the field school, about a mile and a half away is a highway crosses a railroad track, and you can hear trucks and trains from time to time. So I like to think that I don't live in the modern world, but I can hear it from where I'm at. Yeah. And that's close enough for me.
Agreed. Agreed.
So what was other than the our mallet wielding friend, what's any other good stories from the summer? Like
when we were on the detox and we went out in the field, we went to a lake that we do a lot of our canoeing on, and we were on a side of it that I haven't been on a lot, and ended up camping at this little campsite on sort of on one of the branches of the lake. And the students went out on 2-night solos on their own. And so while they were out, I was sitting back at campsite, listening for a whistle in case somebody needed help. And these two old timers came up, and I think they sat with me for about 2.5 hours talking about how they didn't know that campsite was there. And it's always interesting to talk to the people that have lived up here for a long time, just because they have, like the little bit of information that I gleaned talking with some of these people there was that side of the lake, even in like the dead of summer when the bugs are horrendous, doesn't have a bug problem. And they don't know why. But after staying out there for a week, I didn't compared to being back here at that time of year, there was no, the mosquito here or there, but they weren't horrendous like they are anywhere else. And that kind of stuff is interesting because you find
I know why. It's the alien mothership at the bottom of the lake. It's part of the Masardis Triangle.
Right. That's right. I don't know what I was thinking.
Like the geomagnetic waves that the ship gives off.
I hope that cold lasts a week. No, but that stuff is interesting because it makes you think about like, well, what is it about this particular part of this place that we're in all the time that makes that little ecosystem not habitated by bugs? And I don't know what it is, but I think it's an interesting thing to keep looking at. And it's interesting they also told me that they didn't know there was a campsite there. And, it's cool to be at a place and then have it be somewhere that's a lot of people don't come through or even know is there.
And it's, not too far off the beaten path. So that's a very interesting thing I think about like human psychology is that, we did a unit this past week on making deadfall traps, and we talk about learning the habits of animals. If you know an animal's habits and how to make one trap, that's probably worth a lot more than knowing how to carve 50 traps and not knowing anything about the critters you're trying to catch. But it's just the blind spots that we have, and especially the where we're familiar, because we don't necessarily pay attention to places where we are all the time. So, for example, like, if you're out there in podcast land on your way home from work or to school or whatever, I bet there's like, you sort of take the same road every time, or you're on the bus or the train or walking or whatever. And because you do it so many times, you're sort of on autopilot, not really paying attention. So that, what's the term I heard a guy use once was vu-ja-de. It's like the opposite of deja vu. So it's seeing the ordinary thing that you see all the time with new eyes, or like being a tourist.
Actually, so I had a student, a younger student. I ran a couple programs in New Hampshire this year, and one of the exercises we do is sit spots on those programs. And I got an email from the mother of one of these students that was telling me that this kid had brought this home, and he wasn't doing it in a wild place. He was just sitting every day for 15 minutes in their back window and looking out at their yard. And she was telling me about all these things, wildlife and stuff that existed in their backyard and that they had just never paid attention to because they hadn't taken the time. And that kind of stuff. That's why these programs, I think, are important, especially for young people, because if this kid was 8, like he's going to do that for the rest of his life, ideally. And, maybe he'll always have vu-ja-de
I don't know if it's a real term. I did hear it once.
Right. Okay.
I heard some guy.
Well,
say
I like it, so
Yeah.
I'm going to keep using it. It kind of sounds like voodoo, and that makes me happy.
Voodoo makes you happy?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, you take what you can get up here.
Yeah.
For me, it's voodoo.
I guess we'll have to make some dolls next week. Cattail
You haven't
dolls or
seen all the
something.
stuff hanging in the woods?
No, but I
take a Roycroft pack frame with toggles on it and shake it around and cast spells. It's just what I do on the weekends.
Yeah. Well, you got to stay busy.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. So big success this summer running those programs. What you have something that you're going to announce that's going to take place next summer, right?
Yeah. So the thing that led to this was actually the tech detox, because I saw, it was 2 weeks and I wanted to kind of see how that would go with this age group. And, because that course was not like most summer camps. It was there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't about the interpersonal stuff. It was about the hard skills of living outdoors. And by hard, I don't mean like difficult. I mean like the hands-on skills of living outdoors. And it went really well. And sort of that was the final push for me to start a youth version of the semester programs that we run up here. So 4 weeks in the summer, it'll be a wilderness living semester, and students will come up here for the 4 weeks and focus a lot on everything from friction fire to cooking outdoors and building shelters, and really the same stuff we do on the 9 weeks, just in a shorter time frame, so that students can be up here and not miss school and stuff like that.
So what's the age group?
14 to 17 is our age group. Again, I kind of, after seeing the wide range of ages that we have on the semesters and that we had on the Family Bushcraft Week, I think that limiting it to a smaller age group doesn't do anyone justice. I don't think human beings are meant to just hang out with their own peer group all the time. I think there's value in hanging out with people that are younger or older than you.
Well, 14 to 17 is pretty close.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between a 14-year-old and a 17-year-old, right? Maybe that 17-year-old learns patience by dealing with somebody younger than him. Maybe a 14-year-old learns something from somebody older than him. And I think that I don't want to take that experience away from people.
So is there a travel component? Are you guys,
Yes.
Is it just skills, or is it skills plus travel?
Yeah, it'll be 3 weeks in camp and then a week on trail at the end.
Canoeing, hiking?
Canoeing.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah, I think that being on... I don't think that these skills exist in a vacuum, and I think that when we go on trail on these semesters and on, again, this summer with the detox program, that was where it all clicked. I mean, when we're here, like, we're off grid, but there's still a limited amount of infrastructure, and you can kind of get away with cutting corners and stuff. But when you go on trail, that's where it all kind of gets cemented in your head, I think.
I would agree that the expedition is the special sauce.
Yeah.
Because you're out, you're solving problems daily, you're moving, you're traveling, you're learning as you go. Yeah, that's a huge opportunity for learning. And I think there's a big... just for me personally, I've always had a bone to pick with, you look around at different schools and programs and everybody's offering wilderness living skills. And I don't think someone is a qualified teacher of wilderness living skills until they've lived in the wilderness, right? And I think that the skills aspect is often takes a higher spot on the totem pole than the experience aspect. And I think the wilderness living experience, the skills facilitate the experience.
Yes.
They're not an end in themselves.
So our friends in Alberta are having a symposium, and their catchline for it is skills in context. And I think that's really well put, because that's what these things need to be if you want to truly understand them. It's one thing to do friction fire in your backyard, but if you can do it on trail with a set you just made 10 minutes ago, that's when those skills are really driven home, I think.
Well, that's when you experience the culture and the lifestyle
Exactly.
and basically what it means to be a human being.
Right.
Like touching that timeless experience of man in nature.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, I'm in my basement and I'm cranking out bow drills. And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that.
No.
But it's not the full experience.
Exactly.
And I think that I just get tired of hearing about, it's a wilderness living skills class in Manhattan Island in New York City. Like, well, okay, you can definitely do some of the skills there, but the experience is never going to be the same as,
No.
like you say, you're in the middle of northern Maine and you it's raining out and you have to light a fire to cook your dinner, and that's a whole different experience.
Right, and I think it not only a different experience from other wilderness skills courses, but it's also a different experience from a lot of other summer camps for teens. Is that we are not using the outdoors as a pretty backdrop for interpersonal stuff. The interpersonal stuff happens organically, I think. And I think that it's a rare experience to go and live this way, and not one that a lot of other people offer for teenagers, because most of the time it's centered around learning leadership skills and that happens organically on our adult programs. And I think we'll likely do the same there. So the focus for us is on academic learning paired with hands-on knowledge and learning to love working with your hands, which is not something that you see in a lot of youth activities in the modern world.
Yeah, no, I think it sounds like a great program.
Yeah, and sort of
makes me wish I was a teenager again.
Well, we've talked about this before, right? Like, so I don't know if I've told the story on the podcast before, but sort of the genesis of School of the Forest was an idea you had, and then when I was a student, you and I went out flagging trails, and I mentioned wanting to work for an outdoor ed company of some kind, and I will remember your sentence until the day I die, and it was, "They won't pay you enough to buy coffee. I have an idea," and that was the birth of it. And now, so in building that, I wanted to build exactly what you just said. I wanted to build a program that I would have liked to have as a teenager. Because if I had known this stuff existed as a teenager, I would have been in feet first from the get-go, right? And I think that, maybe every student that comes up here doesn't have that same experience, but, if one or two of them see that working in the outdoor industry is a possibility, and maybe that spark gets lit by being at one of our courses, that's it. Like, if I get 2 students a year that feel that way, I'm doing my job.
There's a great movie out there, I think it's on Vimeo, it's called Guided, about one of my mentors, Raymond Rizzi, and if you haven't seen it, I'll throw it in the show notes. I think it's online for free.
Yes.
Anyway, worth looking at, but he's a man who's been guiding professionally for, 40 years. And I think he had a line like that if you take 10 people out and 1 or 2 of them gets it, it's success.
Yes.
Like, you don't expect everybody
entirely
to get it. So yeah, that'll be that sounds like a great program. When is the scheduled for when?
Midsummer.
Okay. Like July?
Yeah.
July 2019?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's so midsummer, come up and spend 4 weeks in the woods, and then go back to the modern life and have to readjust to that, I guess. Yeah,
well, as we near the end of the season in camp now, I have like 6 weeks of intensive therapy to look forward to, and laying on somebody's couch talking about how I don't fit in the modern world. So
I go work at a ski mountain in the winter, and like the first 2 weeks, I'm on a shock collar.
So that
they don't trust me yet.
So that you don't run off? Is it like invisible fence?
Yes, very much so. I bark a lot. I think it's mostly just to keep me from yelling. I don't know. I haven't really figured it out why they do it.
In my younger years, some friends of mine got an invisible fence for their dog, and another friend of mine wanted to see how big the shock was.
I've done the same thing.
So he ran. I never did it. But
I did.
Did you put it around your neck or just hold it?
I put it around my neck.
How big was the shock?
Not great. So for those, I don't know if, I definitely haven't talked about this on the podcast, but electricity is my least favorite thing in the world, and not from like I want to live off the grid. The grid's going down. The feeling of being like, even like static electricity drives me nuts. When I was 3 years old, I put a penny in a light socket, and my dad thinks it's the funniest story in the world because he said it blew me across the hallway, and the full on like hair standing up. But since then, the idea of being shocked is my least favorite thing in the world, and I let a couple friends talk me into putting a shock collar around my neck, and it wasn't great. I don't recommend it for anyone.
I know what I'm going to try to talk you into this afternoon.
It'll probably happen. But yeah, so the other sort of stuff with the wilderness living semester, and I sort of maybe like I don't want to say high-minded because we're definitely not high-minded at all on this podcast, but sort of the the background philosophy of it is just sort of looking at human history you see stuff all the time about kids not knowing, people my age, right? Not knowing how to cook for themselves and almost being proud of it, right? Like
illiterate in life skills and nature skills.
Yes, exactly. Like, I knew people in college who were like proud of the fact that they went to Taco Bell every night. Like it was a badge of honor.
And they're probably dead now.
Well, I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, and it was just like this, I've never turned on the oven in my apartment. I don't know. Basic home economics are not really valued anymore because life is so easy. And that's a really recent thing. We've talked about this before, I think, on the podcast, that up to 200 years ago, a lot of what we teach up here, people knew how to do by the time they were 10. Just because you had to. It was just part of life.
Just a life skill.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like, what does it take to exist in this world?
Yeah.
And how to warm yourself, cook for yourself, make stuff that you need. And it's funny that in our modern world, the
person who doesn't have to do that is the most...
Yeah, we sort of revere these people with tons of money that don't do anything for themselves.
Exactly.
Like, why would we? Yeah, I don't understand.
No, I agree entirely.
It's a world gone mad.
Yeah.
It's madness.
But yeah, so I think that to me, if the skills that we learn up here, they don't just have to exist up here. There is anything that people learn up here, they can take back to whatever lifestyle they have. Knowing, we do food and water logging. Knowing how much food you need every day makes it a lot easier to plan out meals and eat well back at home, because you're not realizing you didn't eat at lunch and having to go get Taco Bell or something similar to that. Knowing how to cook and cook well, because if you're eating garbage up here, you're going to feel terrible. I think that was our last podcast, talking about
definitely.
how important food was. And most people that come through these courses by the end of it have a pretty solid handle on cooking. And if you can do most of the cooking that we do on an open fire, it is really easy to transfer that to a controlled heat source like an electric oven. And I think that, we joke all the time about we teach outdoor home economics up here, but I think that really easily transfers back to your regular life. And it also provides, the adults that are here and hopefully the teenagers that come up here with a skill set that allows them to go out into the natural world in any ecosystem that they might be in. And they not only have a skill set that allows them to enjoy it painlessly, but they also have methods for learning more about that ecosystem that are really hands-on and provide a really deep understanding of the world that they're in. And I think that that's really, really important.
Well, we've talked about it at length. Just the whole idea about actually being self-reliant and, not the modern sort of tropes of Rambo in the woods with a giant knife, or swimming across a river with a knife in your teeth and fighting pirates and all the stupid crap in the media. But I don't know, knowing how to feed yourself over the course of several weeks.
Yeah.
That's what real self-reliance is. Knowing how to get and how to prepare what goes into your body, how to deal with what comes out of your body, all those things. They're not quite as glamorous as, in the movies when they're fighting zombies and aliens and all the other kind of stupid horse crap that's out there. But,
you mean we're not going to go fight the aliens on Skopan?
I don't know, maybe. I want to, get in good with them for when they actually take over. But
I, for one, welcome our alien overlords.
Yeah, but just the idea that, you use the term home economics, and I think I've used that on the podcast in the past, that I read a book about a guy who went to Maine guide school in the 1970s, and he had thought it would have been more, fighting bears and stuff, but it turned out it was he described it as a course in backwoods home economics.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what life is, right?
Yes.
You've got to feed yourself, you've got to water yourself, you've got to take care of what comes out of your body and all those, it's not super glamorous, but that's, that's it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Oh, of course.
That's what self-reliance is. If you're not doing that, then you're relying on someone else to do it for you.
Yeah, and I think that the Taco Bell example was just sort of a joke, but I think it's true. The other thing that you get from this is this ability to plan ahead in a way that a lot of modern culture isn't. Oh, I'm hungry, I'll go get fast food. Oh, I'm this, I'll go do this. And I think that if you have a well planned out way of going about your days, I think life is a lot less stressful. If you have sort of your weeks or your days or whatever planned out in a way where like the little stuff is already prepared and you don't have to panic when you realize you haven't eaten at lunch because you know you cooked a giant batch of something and it's in the fridge, that means a lot less stress in the moment that you can apply to other things, whether that's, I don't know, whatever.
But also a lot less last minute, oh, I'm hungry, go to Taco Bell.
Yeah, exactly.
You're planning
just
ahead.
A healthier lifestyle, I think.
Healthier, cheaper, better for you.
Yeah.
So that's not the purpose of why we get together and teach these things.
No.
But it is the result
Yeah.
of participating in some of our programs.
Right.
Sort of like I had a thing a while ago that, community is not the purpose for us coming together here, but it is the result of living in close quarters with one another.
Absolutely.
So it's
colds.
Yes, and colds. So it's the result, not the purpose.
Right.
Anyway, so the Wilderness Teen... What is the title again?
The Teen Wilderness Living Semester.
Teen Wilderness Living Semester, July 2019. How many? What's the maximum size?
Maximum 8.
Maximum size is 8. What's the tuition?
$2,750.
$2,750.
Yep.
For 4 weeks. Awesome. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Yep.
And I think we should probably go make sure that
Nobody's dead.
Nobody's dead.
Yeah, we probably should.
Yeah. So thank you for squandering the time.
Don't cheapen us, Tim. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We appreciate it.
And again, if you found this podcast useful, please share it with somebody. Give us a review. Any of those things. It's all super helpful for us. So thank you very much. Have a great day. You have been listening to the Jack Mountain Bushcraft Podcast. For more information on our professional wilderness guide training programs that are college accredited and GI Bill approved, visit us on the web at jackmtn.com.